First of all, thanks everybody for coming. I know a lot of you came from Canada and Virginia and all over the place. Some of you had long drives. Hopefully your legs won't cramp up when you're driving back home. Really appreciate you coming. This is probably my 7th or 8th seminar this year. And when I do these seminars, the way I like to do it is I like for you to ask questions as we go. So don't feel like you have to wait. Don't feel like you have any dumb questions. And the other thing, how many of you have heard me speak before? So do I hold back? You can ask me anything you want, all right? I don't deny things. I don't over-exaggerate them. I'll just tell you my perspective. Thank you. And so feel free to ask me anything. You know, when it really what a seminar boils down to from my perspective is, are you getting things that you can take home and apply? I'm not here to teach you guys big words and impress you on how smart I am. I'm here to give you some things that you can take home and you can apply to your, your training regimen, the way you eat, the way you structure your meals, all that kind of stuff. So there goes the gain train. Didn't we have like a crazy drop set one time, and Dave and I was doing a YouTube video, I think, and then that train went by, and that was like legendary. That was really cool. So anyways, so I want you to take home things that you can actually apply, because if you can't do that, then the seminar is worthless. The other thing I like to do is I like to tell stories. So if any of you follow me on Facebook, if I do a Facebook Live or something like that, I like to tell stories. I always find it interesting to, when I go to seminars and I hear other people speak, I like to hear what happened to them when they were younger, just things that happened along the way in their own personal development in their lives. I just always find that stuff really enriching, and it's really cool. And so I'll probably tell you a few stories along the way too. So what I planned on covering today was really training, nutrition, but really everything. So I wasn't going to just talk about inflammation or how to build your calves. By the way, I didn't see nearly enough people in the calf machine today. So I'm going to work through training and I'm going to work through nutrition, but ask me questions as we go and we'll get a good dialogue going. And I'm very, very confident when you leave today, you'll have a bunch of stuff that you can say, oh, wow, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this. So, all right, good deal? All right, so here's what I like for people to understand first of all, and what's most important. I want to ask you a question. How many of you believe you have a destiny in this industry? I mean, you feel like you have a destiny. Swede, who else? Anybody else feel like you have a destiny? What is your destiny? Tell me. To own and operate a gym for as long as you can. That's his destiny. What are you doing to make that happen?
I'm doing it right now.
You're doing it right now. So you're going through the day-to-day operations. So you're fulfilling your destiny, you think. What else? Swede, you had your hand up.
I would work with helping many people, teach many people that can throughout my rest of the time I have.
So Swede wants to help and assist as many people as he can. And I don't need to ask him what he's doing because I know this is what he does for a living. So why do I ask you that? Because sometimes I ask people what their destiny is and they'll give me an answer. Then I'll say, well, what are you doing to make it happen? And they're like, well, I was thinking about maybe doing this. Your habits, everything you do in your daily life have to match up with your destiny. If you want to make something happen, if you have a goal or a destiny and your habits don't fit that, it's not going to happen. Okay, so anybody in here, Swede or Dave or we can all talk to you about all this stuff all day long, but until you make these things your daily habits, nothing will change. So you have to actually do something daily, your habits. That is the most simple lesson, but it is the most valuable lesson I can teach you. You know, if a guy tells me I want to be a pro bodybuilder, and I say, well, what are you doing? He's like, well, I was thinking about picking up my training intensity. You know, I got to clean my diet up. My diet's been bad for 6 months. I'm going to say, it doesn't sound like you're too serious about it to me. So think about your own lives. Think about your goals and your destiny. Think about your habits. Think about the things you're doing day to day. Okay? I just want to put that in your head. If you get nothing else out of today, register that in your brain. What am I doing day to day to make something happen? Got it? All right, cool. All right, let me see if I can figure out how to. All right. Okay. Everybody knows that I'm a superhero fanatic. Does anybody know who this is? It used to be Doomsday, but I got bored giving the Doomsday talk, so I changed it. Nobody knows who that, seriously? Do we need to start giving out free comic books at these? Oh my God, thank you, you saved me. I about had a heart attack. A Sentinel. Now, what makes them so powerful?
They can absorb the powers of superheroes that they come in contact with.
All right, so his answer was they can absorb the superpowers and the powers of who they come in contact with. This is, that's adaptation, right? You know, they can adapt to stress and what's happening. This is kind of how I view training. I hear a lot of people say, stick to the basics, just do the same thing over and over. And I think that's wonderful for beginners, maybe some intermediates. But when you want to become the best at something, when you want to become the best powerlifter or bodybuilder or strength athlete, whatever it is, you can't just do the same thing over and over because your body, it gets used to it. I mean, wouldn't it be cool if we could just do 3 sets of 8 of curls every day and then all of a sudden your arms look awesome? But you guys know that's not how it works. So it drives me a little crazy when I hear coaches say, oh, you're thinking way too hard, you're putting too much into this, you just need to do this just same basic stuff over and over. Yeah, maybe if you're a genetic anomaly, genetic freak, maybe if you're hyper responsive to drugs, maybe that will work for you. But for the vast majority of us, we have to actually put some thought into our programming. We have to actually think about what we're doing. We have to think about what our limitations are, what our weaknesses are, and we have to figure out, how am I going to overcome this? If those of you who are familiar with my training know I have a lot of crazy back exercises. Do you know how I come up with those? Because I have white man's disease, right? I have a crappy back. All the basic stuff didn't work for me. I did barbell rows and deadlifts till the cows come home, and I never got a good back from it. I'm not saying those are bad exercises. I'm just saying those didn't work for me personally. So I found other exercises that helped me a lot, and my back is now a pretty good body part. It's pretty solid. But my point to you is, man, your body can adapt really well to things. So you've got to put thought in your programming. You got to put thought in your diet. You got to put thought into this stuff. Okay? So, simple message, right? All right, so I really have 2 different kinds of training I've been doing lately with clients. Certainly myself too. And the way I like to think about training from a hypertrophy perspective is I think about the things that you can do training-wise to cause a muscle to get bigger. So what is some of those things? What's like a basic? Just tell me. What can you do to make yourself bigger, training-wise? Increase the weight. Progressive resistance.
Mechanical stress, metabolic stress.
Mechanical stress. Mechanical stress is a result of increasing weight, but he also said metabolic stress. So metabolic stress is another way. You may not be increasing the amount of weight you're lifting, but there's other things that are happening to various metabolites, and when you get the crazy pump, and some of you guys get some leg work with me today, and that was what I would call, there's definitely some mechanical resistance there. They're not in isolation, but there was a lot of things going on there during the drop sets and all that kind of stuff. So what I find is people put themselves in these camps, and you have the kind of progressive resistance camp, and these people say that if you didn't increase the weight during your workout, then your workout, you didn't get better. That's baloney, okay? The obvious thing that everybody in this room knows is you can't increase every lift you do the rest of your life. But to say that your workout wasn't a quality workout because you didn't increase the amount of weight you lifted is baloney. What your body knows is how hard it was working. Was that 8 reps really, really hard, or was it easy? If it was really, really hard, then I'm going to tell you that was probably a pretty successful set. So the reason why I bring that up is because when you think about your session, you think about, okay, what's going to make this a good session, or what's going to make it a bad session? I don't really like for people to think in those terms when it comes to how much weight they're lifting. I keep it really simple for my bodybuilders, and what I tell them is, I want you doing the most weight you can with the number of reps that I ask you to perform with good form. Okay, so if I tell you to do, I want you to do 6 reps on the incline bench, and I want your 6th rep to be really hard. If that 6th rep was really hard, then you did your job. If it was pretty easy, you probably didn't push yourself hard enough. Now, if that weight was 5 pounds less than the week before, or 5 pounds more than the week before, I don't really care. I just want to know, were you giving it your all? So don't get hung up on the numbers. And the other thing I want to mention is, when we talk about numbers, a lot of times people will compromise their form to hit numbers. So, okay, I got to beat what I did last week, so then all of a sudden, your form just turns into an abomination. It's awful. You know, you've seen the deadlifts. The worst thing in bodybuilding is you see the rows, the jumping trap spasm rows. It's just crazy, but people will do that to say, look how much weight I lifted. From a hypertrophy perspective, I just don't agree with that approach. We're very, very form-driven. You want perfect execution on your reps. So people say, well then, but how do you really train really hard and really push yourself? You can't always keep good form. Yeah, you can. You could take some weight off and you can do a drop set. You could have your partner help you. You could do forced reps. You could do partial reps when you can't get more full reps. You know, maybe you do half reps to extend your set. There's all kinds of things you can do to increase the intensity that you're training at that do not require you to use crappy form. So I'm kind of a form Nazi. Okay, so in terms of training, what I was getting at is there are different ways to achieve hypertrophy. Progressive resistance, that's great. If you can push and use more weight with good form, that's great. Metabolic stress, you'll hear the term cell swelling, you know, getting that crazy pump. So when I started really writing down my programs about 6 years ago, I thought, is there any rule that says you can't you can't use all those things in a workout? I mean, could you use metabolic stress? Could you use mechanical stress? Could you use all that stuff? Could you use it all in a workout? And I started to kind of formulate some ideas, and I mean, the short answer is to achieve maximum hypertrophy, and this actually has it started working really well with the people who I worked with who are really advanced, which is what kind of taught me, man, maybe I'm onto something here. I mean, these people that have been stuck for a long time, now all of a sudden are breaking out of their ruts. And it's because we weren't so singularly focused on one of those methods for achieving hypertrophy. We had a phased approach built in where we attacked every method that we knew that would create hypertrophy. So the system became built into each workout. Now, so how do you structure all that? What do you do first? Do you do the heavy stuff first? Do you do the reps first? How do you structure that? So here's the other thing. Over the years, many years of training, I've had many, many, many strains and almost severe injuries that I luckily avoided. And there are just some exercises that I feel create the most risk in terms of soft tissue or muscle tears. I'll give you a classic example is a bench press. I can't tell you how many people I know that that I have known over the years that went into the gym, they did the bench press first and they tore their pec. I can't tell you how many people that's happened to. I mean, and it's usually these compound movements where you're really using the maximum amount of weight. I had probably, I'm going to say 30 near pec tears, black and blue, probably 5 of them. And I finally got it through my thick head. Maybe it's not a good idea for me to bench or incline first. So I started doing dumbbell work. I started doing machine work first. Voila, I didn't have those injuries anymore. The reason why I'm telling you this is because I'm a really big believer in longevity. And I think if you structure your workouts properly, yeah, you're going to get strains here and there just from training hard. That happens. That's part of the game. But major injuries, I don't think major injuries are acceptable. I don't think it's, you know, I hear people say, yeah, I tore this and I tore that. That sucks, but I personally don't like that because obviously you're on the sideline and you can't train, so how's it helping you get any better? The other thing I see a lot of now is when I hear people talk about their injuries, there's almost always like a warning sign. Like, yeah, I did the rep on the bench and it didn't quite feel right, and then on the next rep I felt a tear. Most people, when you talk to, they'll tell you they felt something like that. So the way I train, you can call me a sissy if you want, I don't care. If I feel something and it doesn't feel right, I'm done. I'm moving on to another exercise because it's not worth it. I was doing leg presses 4 weeks ago, and I was using a lot of weight for me. I felt a little strain in the side of my quad, and I immediately racked it and said, I'm done. The next week, it was a little bit sore. The week after that, it was still a little sore, and then last week, it was pretty much good to go. Now, what would happen if I'd have tried to do another rep or two? Chances are I could have torn it, because I felt it pulling. I even felt almost like a little pop. So, train smart. If something doesn't feel right, don't do it. Now, so how does that play into our workout structure? So what I started to do is I started at the beginning of the workouts, I started to use exercises that I consider very easy on soft tissue, more pumping in nature. I wouldn't call it pre-exhaust. I would just call it an exercise. Like for chest, it would be a dumbbell press or machine press. Still a good basic exercise, but you start to drive blood into the muscle and all that, and we move the compound stuff down to second, and we'll get to that. Now, so what are we doing? What is the purpose of this first phase? I was talking to some people about shoulders today. Stewie, you guys, how'd that shoulder stuff feel? Where'd you go?
Yeah.
How'd that feel?
Very good.
It was really good. And what we did was we really worked on kind of a mind-muscle connection, mechanically using the right muscles. He was training his rear delts. We were taking his traps and rhomboids out of it so it didn't turn in, we were really isolating. So this first phase, what should be going through your mind is establishing this awesome mental connection with your muscle. Now remember, guys, I come from the bodybuilding side, hypertrophy. So you just got to, if you come more from the powerlifting side, you just got to take me with a grain of salt. But you work really hard on establishing this mind-muscle connection. I saw some folks over here doing pull-downs. We made a few tweaks with their form, with the way they're driving their elbows, with their mechanical position, again, to establish this awesome mind-muscle connection. That, to me, is how a workout should start. The muscles that you're targeting, that you're trying to really work hard and get them to grow, you establish that mind-muscle connection, you start to drive blood in there, okay? There's also some nutritional benefits to this as well that we'll get into. So this first phase, let me see. I call it pre-pump activation. It's just a fancy word for just establishing a mind-muscle connection. You use an exercise that's not going to tear your body up. Okay, it's more of a classic bodybuilding type exercise, I would call it. Now, the second phase. Okay, now.